Welcome back to House Rules. I am your favorite host, Rachel LaForce.
I'm your second favorite host. No, I'm your favorite host. Actually, I'll let you pick. I'm not going to tell you who's your favorite host. I'm going to let you decide because I believe in you. But I'm Alex Gatlin, the other half of this show. This is House Rules Podcast. We do this every Monday. Usually we live stream at 5:30. Had to go a little earlier today for some scheduling stuff, but we're here. We're live. We're doing it. I know a lot of you guys are listening to the pre-recorded version later, so thank you for that. And we are still in the process of working out our rebrand. We have some ideas for what the show is going to be, but just so you guys know.
Listen, guys, it's going to be a hot rebrand, okay? I'm talking, we're going to go into 2021 fired up.
You're not wrong. It's not an inaccurate thing to say, but some pretty interesting stuff. I don't know if it's a breaking news, but some interesting news. Our fearless leader, Donald J. Trumpstein, may or may not have, when I say fearless leader, by the way, I'm obviously being ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. I also love that you say it, like, at this point, Trump having COVID is, like, such old news.
I know, right? It really is. Well, I think it first happened Thursday night, I believe.
Yeah, and in 2020 time, that's, like, that could have been last year.
Well, here's what I'll say. Here's the one thing I'll say.
Well, wait, so really quick, can I just say one thing? So, like, yeah. I'm home, I'm alone. You and I are almost never separated, right? We work together, we live together, it's quarantine, right? So we're together all the time.
Yeah.
And if there's a news story I haven't heard about it, I will hear about it because I live with, you guessed it, Alex Gatlin, okay? So to be...
Listen, I'm well informed and I'm proud of it.
No, I'm not, listen, I'm not throwing shade, I'm being serious. I mean, I'm for sure like ribbing you because like that's my job. You know what I mean? Thank you. I'm always be working. So, but to receive that information and you not being home,
I know.
I almost like didn't know what to do, like how to process it. Like I was like, because I was almost like, oh, do I have to like read about it now? Because like normally you'll come in, you're like, you're my aggregate. Like some people do, like they'll be like, oh, you should if you don't have a large retention for reading, like you should use this app or this app. I'm like, it's fine. I live with Alex Gatlin. He is my like news aggregate.
There you go, guys. I should be Getlin Media. That should be I guess it would be Getlin LaForce Media, but
well, it's a work in progress.
Okay.
So those were my initial thoughts. Like my two initial thoughts were whether it's factual or fabricated. Either way, of course, this is what happens.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
of course.
I feel like so many people have like fixated on it. Like to me, I'm like, doesn't matter if he does have it or if it's fabricated, because either way, the way that Trump will respond to this happening would be the same.
Sure.
So we don't get anything more. Like I feel like a lot of Dems right now in liberal leaning, like everybody's like, see, have you seen the thing where it was like he wasn't actually signing papers? It was just like a Sharpie on blank paper. Because it was like supposed to be him working from Walter Reed.
All of that, like, stop. Who cares? Like, you're looking for any reason to be like, it's lies. It's like, enough. We got it. Everybody who agrees with you still agrees with you, and everybody who doesn't isn't going to change their mind.
Yeah. I mean, and that happens from like both sides, obviously. It's just that on the left, because the basis of my beliefs and values align with those thoughts and beliefs, it's easier to see them like being crazy than like I wouldn't call it crazy because it's not real.
Right.
But to me, I'm like, yo, that's a waste of energy.
Yeah.
Like, especially when they were like, oh, his tax, like, everything's out now. It's like, did anybody actually believe that Donald Trump paid taxes?
Also, think about how old that news is now. Like, that's
100%.
But here's what I want to say.
Remember when we saw UFOs? No, you don't, because nobody paid attention to it.
I know. God damn it, dude. Here's what I want to say, though. Listen, I'll preface by saying I don't want anyone to die. Certainly not the president. Even if you hate Donald Trump, you shouldn't.
You don't like Pence.
You shouldn't want him to die of COVID.
No.
Like, right? Let's get that out of the way. That aside, looking at 2020 purely from like a narrative comedic standpoint, what a phenomenal ending if he kicked it from COVID.
But also 100%. But that was also where my head went, which is like a place of narrative, of course, right? It's same thing where I was like, everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm like, you can't? Of course this is what's happening.
Sure, dude.
Are you serious? In the grand scheme that has been not only his leadership, I won't say leadership, his position, because I frankly have your thoughts on it. He's not a leader.
Yeah.
So his being the president of the United States, he like, of course, so it's already that, like, of course, of course, of course. And then, like, through this 6 months, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, you thought it was going to happen any other way? Like,
Right.
of course, this is the way that it happens.
But to me, like, I'm just thinking about, we all know, like, the hardcore Trump people, like, how much they, like, love this guy and all the gear and everything. Just think about, like, the insane memorial services they would have, the effigies they would build. Like, I mean, especially through the South or just, like, red parts of the country, they'd have all these, like, shrines to Donald, right? It'd be, like, him, like, saluting a flag or, like, him with, like, a gun. And it would be so funny. I know, listen, obviously there'd be parts that wouldn't be funny and yeah, blah, blah, blah. No one should, people hate Trump or they, you're mocking someone dying. I understand all that part. But just the like visuals, right, of these like sad, hardcore Trumpers, like a tear running down their eye with a MAGA hat, and they're like having their like goodbye dinner at Ruby Tuesdays. Like, Donald, you served us great, sir, and we will honor you forever. Like their commander in chief, right? You know what I'm saying?
No, I appreciate your act out. The part that was the funniest to me is that you made the setting at a Ruby Tuesdays. That's
of course, dude.
That's the part for me that. Do you know how many Ruby Tuesdays I went to after church as a kid?
My point exactly.
I know, many Ruby Tuesdays. They've got a great salad bar. You know what I mean? Anybody with a low-fat cottage cheese option, I'm on board.
The thing is, what actually, it's probably good.
Well, can I say one thing in response
to that,
though? You can
say as many things as you like.
Oh my gosh, you've heard it here first. Thank you so much. Is for the folks I do know that, in not so many words, have said, whether they actually mean it or they don't, of like, excuse my French, but like, fuck Trump, I don't care if he dies, like all of that vitriol. I'm not here to tell somebody if that's right or wrong. I don't agree, but to each their own, right? Everybody's having their own experience. But the thing to me is, I'm like, also, you guys don't actually want that. Do you know how much worse everything would get if that were because that's still a...
You're saying if Mike Pence is our president?
Well, no, I'm just saying to your point, you took the comedic aspect of it, right? Of what would happen. And I'm just serving as a voice of like, but also think about the reality of what that would be. Do you know the amount of people that would think it's conspiracy? That would only drive this already, like, civil discourse, like, further and further and further apart.
Two things would happen or will happen. I hope nobody dies of COVID. He seems like he's getting better. And also, if you actually hate Trump, if you truly believe that he's a criminal and all this and that, wouldn't you rather him live and then get prosecuted, right? That's
how I feel for certain.
But two things would happen if Trump...
I'm sorry. I just thought about, to me, all I would want for Trump forever is that he can't wear a hairpiece. Like, to me, it's like, put him in jail or anything like that. Like, I want to do something. Like, what would actually be humiliating for the Don? And it's like, if it was like, listen, like, some people loved you. A lot of people kind of think you're awful. And so you are a criminal. And so we've decided that the only penance is just no hair.
Dude, Trump would look hardcore if he went full Walter White, shaved his head, grew a goatee. He would be so scary.
But he would also look really sickly. I mean, he already just kind of, this is, I know like my mom's listening, but he does kind of look like the head of a penis. You know what I mean? He does. You know me, I'm never going to talk ill about the way that somebody looks, but he does.
Okay, so what I was saying before you had to chime in.
Earlier, he said I could say whatever I want.
No, you can. It's okay.
All right.
No, but jokes aside, this is the two things that would really be like, and I'm going to say this so hopefully if it does get to Trump passing away, we can try and shut this stuff down before it starts. Like, to your point, the conspiracy theories, right? People would think he was poisoned by the left or it's a fraud or, the internet would go wild. But the other thing that would really bum me out is that there's going to be these hardcore Trump people that have these like memorial ceremonies and they want to honor the president and really give him a proper send-off. And then you're going to have these hardcore Antifa left idiots who see like, we have to fight them. It's like honoring Hitler. And they're going to show up and do it at best, they're just going to be outside with megaphones. At worst, it's going to get to like pure chaotic violence in the streets. And that would be really, really bad.
Yeah.
Oh, now you're quiet. Now you're without words.
I mean, I'm just gonna let you go, because you get this like look in your eyes sometimes, dude.
Why?
Like you're like, this is what's gonna happen, and it's like,
you think
you're
wrong?
not on a helicopter over Baghdad right now. Like, it's okay.
I know that, but what I'm saying...
No, I don't think you're wrong. I think you and I experience the world differently, and
that's for sure.
I think that you, your brain and experiences are designed to create a different reality than what mine are designed to create.
The thing that's a fact. And that's good. That's why we have a nice balance. In fact, I did a podcast this morning on...
Nice balance. Also a good name for a podcast rebrand.
New Balance.
Great name for a shoe. Already taken.
All right. Balanced breakfast. Remember that? Remember when that was a thing? They tried to convince us that sugared cereal and processed sugar orange juice was part of a balanced breakfast. What a crock of shit.
Mm-hmm.
You don't care.
No, I do.
Okay, my other point was, though, you know me, like my biggest thing that I hate more than anything is hypocrisy and double standards. So people were all up in arms about Trump doing that like ride in the presidential limo to like wave to his fans. Did you see this? I don't know if you saw this.
No.
So after he was in the
If you weren't home, I didn't read the news.
So after well, you know, that's why I'm here to inform you now and all our lovely listeners. So after he was sick and it was like officially whatever, I guess he decided he wanted to like say hi to his supporters outside of his hospital. So we got in the presidential limo, masked up, but in the limo and like waved to them through the window to say like, thank you so much. You're out here. Because there was a big crowd outside of Walter Reed showing support for the president.
He was in a limo inside of a hospital?
No, he left the hospital in the limo to like drive outside and like wave to the supporters outside.
Oh, from the window, meaning he was inside a vehicle.
Yes. He was in the limousine and and he waved. The windows were up. He waved to and like said hello.
Wow, what a psychopath.
So that's what he said. It's like, how dare he like risk.
Well, he can do whatever he wants, but like that to me, I mean, I've seen him do some narcissistic stuff. That to me, because especially let's assume that he does actually have COVID. What a psychotic move. If you really think about what it would be like to be the president of the United States when the United States is literally splitting in half.
Sure.
Okay? We're in a pandemic. We are in a resurgence of civil rights. We are in, I mean, it's like we are completely in an election year. And he was like, put me in the limo, baby. And like masked up because like he needed attention that badly.
I think it was less needing attention. I think it's his idea of showing strength and being like, I'm going to overcome this, and it through the power of you guys cheering me, praying for me.
Well, I think that's what the exterior motive is.
Sure.
But I think it all derives from narcissism.
You're certainly have. I'm sure there's a lot of truth.
It's the same
to
as
that.
like that. I've got a couple, people in my life where it's the hero complex.
Yeah.
That they'll also be around people lesser functioning than them in order to be the hero.
Sure.
You're not really a hero. You're doing it so that people can say, oh, you're a hero. Defeats the purpose.
Right. That is true. I guess my only thing, though, I cared much less about Trump because he didn't get out of the limo. I mean, I'm sure that like the Secret Service that were with him, he put them at risk, whatever. But that he's
whatever about those guys. You know what I mean?
No,
Who cares
I'm
what they're
just
like?
saying it wasn't like he. I'm not. Listen, obviously I'm not a fan of Trump. Like I'm not a supporter of Trump. I just found it hilarious the double standards of like the Twitter world, like saying like how risky and dangerous and insane it was that Trump did this, but like if it was a protest of some kind, it would have been totally fine. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the rules aren't the same.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I also don't know why people are so angry about protests.
It's not that. It's no. It's not angry about the protest. It's the double standards that if
slow
you're.
down.
But I didn't finish my sentence.
I know, but I'm also not against you, so I'm asking you just to slow down for a second. And I'm happy to keep hearing you. I'm just reminding you I'm not against you.
Okay.
So, finish what you're saying, and then I'll interject with what I wanted to say.
Most people who have issues with, or they're not even like someone like myself, I think the protests are great as long as they don't get violent. What I'm saying is there's clearly a double standard where if you're protesting for certain causes, then the COVID rules are like, well, this is more important than COVID. But if you're doing something that doesn't fall in line with like whatever the agenda is, oh, well, then you're being reckless and COVID is more important. And you can't, the minute you try to pick and choose this, you lose all credibility to someone like me. Like it has to be one or the other. Either COVID is so dangerous that we have to keep separating. It doesn't matter what you're protesting, or it's not, because otherwise you just get to decide, well, my issues are important and theirs aren't.
Yeah. You're just really riled up about it. I'm surprised. I guess I don't understand where it comes from because
it's a double standard.
No,
it's unfair.
I understand that. But the only reason that it would actually, like on a spiritual level, right? Stay with me.
Yeah.
Would bother people, right? I won't go after you. We are on a,
Sure.
a public platform. People can hear this. But meaning like It's clearly because somebody set that double standard in you. Like, it's clearly a trigger point for you. Like, you know how up in arms and I get about men that only respect women that are attractive,
Right.
or like, right? Like, that's a trigger point for me.
Sure.
Really attractive women who pretend like they're absolved of body image because they're hot. And I'm like, no, you look that way because the world has told you that's what makes you important.
Sure.
So then I get angry, right? Like, clearly I'm talking about it, I'll get frustrated, right? So like, that's a trigger point for me. Clearly, this double standard of things like that is like a trigger point for you, where like it's almost like you like start to see red.
I don't think it's bad. I think it's good.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just simply pointing out, like, I'm just curious where that stems from.
I don't know. I mean,
outside of just like, I believe that you care about people, and I believe that you want things to be fair.
Sure.
And I'm just
saying,
I mean, listen, nobody likes hypocrisy. I guess the difference to me in that sense is Trump actually has COVID.
Right.
But that would be the only difference, of like, if he knew that he had it and was going out, but also like if he's in a limo, then I mean,
to me, it's more of just the people who are it's gotten to the point now where everything this whole year on either political end, both sides aren't actually, like, if we go back to the Supreme Court justice thing with Amy Coney Barrett, right? Like, I understand if you don't think it's appropriate for her to get nominated before the election, but 100% everybody on the left who's saying that would not, if it was Hillary was in office and there was some popular Republican running, none of them would actually be like, no, we should wait. They would for sure be pushing through.
But wasn't that you who said, is that somebody calling us? What is that?
I think it was on the computer.
Oh, weird.
Can you mute that? I think somebody called the Skype number on the computer. Oh, thanks.
Okay,
All right, we're good.
Hi, hello? Yes, hi.
So what were we saying?
And then I looked at my phone. So many congratulations.
So I was talking about the hypocrisy that I feel like.
Yes. So I'm sorry, I'm with you. So yes, that if it were the Dems that were being able to make the decision, but wasn't it you that was speaking of recently where it was like, what's messed up about our politics is that it's one or the other. So there isn't any way where like, because I don't know, it's like, is it so much hypocrisy as it is like, if you're on one team, you just want that team to win. Do you know what I mean? But wasn't that you that talked about that you were like, that's why we need a third party or something, because no matter who wins, there's going to be half of the population that doesn't get what they want. So I feel like stemming off of that idea, it's just that exact same thing. Like, of course, because it feels scheming, but that's what we also have to recognize is it is a scheme.
Right.
It is a plot. It is a ploy. It is a plan. And it is a plan that's set to deconstruct all of the hard work of Ruth. And so, I don't think it's so much that Amy is like, I hate women's rights and I want to, like, I don't know her. I don't know anything about her outside of like what I've read, from what other people have said about her.
Right.
So, but I am also somebody that chooses to see two things. I can recognize, like, listen, and again, it's like we all believe things based off of what has been told to us or our upbringing or whatever. So it's like, I can't say like, oh, she's a hateful person, or like, oh, I don't know. I think she's rather damaging to the progress of women. That's,
But the problem is that the real issue when it comes to abortion and Roe v. Wade, there's virtually no middle ground. It's one of those issues.
That's 100% true. That I 100% agree with you on.
Because I also got in, I don't know if sometimes I hear so much information, I can't even remember if I was having a conversation with somebody or I heard a podcast with two other people.
Yeah, I know. That's fair.
But there was someone of like relative political stature in the commentary world who was saying, like, what I tend to lean towards is when it comes towards to abortion, I say it's really more of a women's issue. Whatever my opinion is, I don't really think it's not. I don't need to have a hill to die on with this because I'm never going to be in that position personally. So I'd rather just like not even put my foot in the camp of either side, right? But I lean towards women choosing. That's like I'm certainly leaning towards that, but really I'm just like I'm staying out of it. And this other person.
Oh, sorry. Can I offer you something on that note?
Yes.
Oh gosh, this is what it's like to be with us all the time, you
Well,
guys.
it's just like, I know you're excited, but I haven't finished my point.
Well, I just wanted to add something before,
Please add it.
you know,
Okay.
of saying that I respect and I appreciate the awareness of saying that's not a choice that I would ever have to make. So that's for somebody else. But I also encourage you that we also need people who it isn't their choice to help champion that it is a woman's choice.
Well, so on that other note, this person took the other angle and she was like, that's a coward's answer. A real man would be a hero and stand up for the life of the unborn, regardless if he is a woman or not. Like, so they're like, to that logic, right? So this woman, I don't remember her name, it doesn't matter, but she has like some kind of Twitter relevance. And she was just taking that same attitude, but the other stance. And there's really no middle ground. It's
But my only anger towards conservatives who say that also don't fund programs outside of primarily their white communities and their white children. So that's the only reason why, you know, I get angry, especially when it comes from a place of faith, when they're like, well, every, you know, child is, you know, of God and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, right. But then you guys also don't put money into education. You don't like, you know, support these
we're
other
getting in the weeds now. I was more simply
No,
just,
I know. I'm not saying, but also like, that's not getting in the weeds. That's a totally valid point of saying like, that's my only frustration with that argument specifically, because I also, I don't, you know, I totally understand how somebody could view it as like murder and that's not our choice to make or all of those things. I don't believe those things, but I understand that point of view, especially from a place of faith, where I want to encourage those conservative leaning folks is wanting to offer them like, hey, if that's really a doctrine that you hold, you know, really, really close to your heart, I also encourage you to think about what are all the other ways in which the party and the people you're voting for are not honoring these lives.
I know, I understand that. I was simply more just, we can get in the weeds of that all day. What I was really highlighting is saying that, like, my point earlier when we got off topic to what I brought up is like, no matter what happens in November, half of this country is going to feel like their way of life is being directly attacked. And I know that, you know, and we both have, well, I won't speak for you because you come from some conservative backgrounds where you grew up, but like, I certainly have way more liberal people in my life, so I see them more. And they're like, yeah, but it's about time because Trump's ruined enough art. And it's like, even if you really believe that, fine. Even if you truly, truly believe that, you still have to recognize that there's tens of millions, if not more, people in this country who are going to feel backed into a corner and more radicalized if Trump doesn't get reelected. I'm not saying that's a reason to vote for Trump, certainly not. But like the big picture here, the long-term solution isn't just mocking these people and being like, all right, now the racist got to go. We have to have conversations. We have to find a way to like treat each other like fellow Americans. We've lost all of that. It's like every day I feel like it gets worse and worse. And these problems are only going to get amplified if we keep like doubling down on this. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't agree.
How do you not agree with that?
I do believe that Trump has been very disruptive. I believe that a lot of his goal was to be disruptive. I believe that the majority of his language is counter to what he's, you know, like brought the evangelicals into and like.
I don't disagree with any of that.
Right. But I'm just saying where you're like, you know, we're not having conversations. It's like that even goes back to the social dilemma where we saw that. It's like, well, of course we can't have conversations based on where we are and what we Google. We're getting different information.
Yeah.
So while I do think that it is on us to take personal onus of why do we, not only who are we voting for, but why do we believe the things that we believe?
Sure.
And what is it behind that belief and all of those things? That is our personal responsibility. But it's also the responsibility of the people that are creating. That is a massive issue that we're Googling things and we're not getting the same pieces of information.
Yeah.
We are literally in the digital age of fake news, 100%. And I didn't really believe that for a while. And now I'm really like, oh, that's 100% true. And so I do think that we need to have more conversations. But I also think a lot of that comes from, and I'm not saying that Biden is going to do this well because it's really difficult to listen to him speak. But Trump is doing nothing to bring everybody together. He's not doing anything to create that. And I would rather see 4 years of Biden pretending to do that and bringing people together than having Trump who has no regard for creating America as one again.
I agree. I am not arguing that point at all. What I'm trying to highlight here, and I agree that I prefer Biden to win because I think it'll calm a lot of the like insanity right now will calm down at least for a bit if Biden wins. What I'm saying though, speaking more to my left liberal friends, is if you guys got to learn how to win classy. So if Biden wins, and it's the internet is what it is, like it's almost a lost cause. But like, an uptick of like Trump supporter mockery is the absolute worst thing. Like, take the win like a pro and move on. Because if we start doubling down on like these idiots, Trump and blah, 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 it's going to get so much worse. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, but again, I guess I just feel like there's a lot of people, predominantly people of color, or, you know, people who have like fluid gender, or like anybody that's not within, you know, white size America, have really endured a lot of trauma and seen a lot of people on the other side saying that they don't matter and working towards. Just let me finish. I know that you don't agree, but I'm telling you it's real, whether you agree or not.
That's not what I'm saying.
What are you saying?
What I'm saying, actually, let's just move on from this because you're not getting my point and it's just going to get more frustrating.
No, I just asked you. I didn't say I don't get your point. I just said, what are you saying? So I'm giving you an opportunity to share that.
I get what you're saying there. What I'm saying is that whichever side wins, if they don't learn how to win respectfully as like American to American, and they still treat the other side like they're the enemy, it's like, yeah, we took them out, let's keep it going. That is going to cause civil war in this country. And there's a lot of energy on like the internet that's just brainwashed to be like, that other side hates what I am, what I believe, etc. And I'm not going to get into the weeds with you about like, you know, how if these folks are like actually their like lives are being like, I think there's an uptick in all around sensationalism, and there is some of that what you're talking about, but it's not one sided. It's not like there's this evil like mass of like Trump people that are like out to get, you know, people who first of all, this is the thing about, I don't like Trump, but the funny thing is about those Trump rallies, people who show up, they don't care where you come from as long as you're like into the team. They don't actually give a shit if you're white or whatever, or straight or whatever. They just want to see other Trump supporters. And I'm not a Trump supporter myself, but they'll take in anybody. They just don't like being, the whole reason he won is because those people feel like they've been ignored for their whole life by the government. And so they just don't want to see more people being like, the one guy who you thought was on your team, he's an idiot. And I'm not saying that's even wrong necessarily, but like if we just keep doubling down on this, it's only going to get worse. Mm-hmm. You're over it now?
No, I'm just listening.
Okay.
I just disagree. So I feel like to say this, we're just at a stalemate. Because if I'm just going to say the same thing I already said, and you're going to tell me that you see it differently. So I think it's just of saying, thank you for sharing. And I hear what you're saying. And I agree with a lot of what you're saying. That, I mean, you know me, I'm an interpreter. I'm a communicator. I'm an expresser. Like, of course, I want people to be able to have conversation. And I want people to see how big America is. I wish people, I know I'm in a completely privileged place to where I have not only have people of, you know, different colors and race and gender identity and socioeconomic, like I have a very wide array of those folks in my life and in my family.
Yeah.
So I've been able to see and be exposed to the way in which not only the world has shaped them, but specifically the last, 4 years has been for them. And so, and being able to tour and travel around the world or the country rather, and being able to see like, oh yeah, like life in Los Angeles is way different than Peoria, Arizona, or Marietta, Georgia, or Tampa, Florida, or, like upstate New York. It's like, the way in which we all have resources literally changes and shapes our perspective on what's happening. And so I do think conversations are really important, but I really feel like it's more important for us folks in the middle to be having these conversations, because folks that are all the way on one side or the other of the way that all of this is affecting them, their ability to cross over is so much greater
Yeah.
than folks like you and I that, you know, more or less, depending on whoever becomes president, our lives aren't really going to change that much. And that's an amazing, massive, massive privilege that we have. So I feel like, you know.
But the thing that frustrates me is I hear a lot of folks say, like, Trump's going to go after LGBT rights. There's nothing in his. That's not an agenda he's pushing. I don't know where that's coming from. What is Trump? What policies? I'm not, again, for the like 10,000th time, I'm not a fan of Trump. But I'm also not a fan of like people just misconstruing stuff and being inaccurate. What's like a single policy Trump has pushed through that's like been an attack on gay people?
I don't actually know enough about that to speak to it.
But
so,
I've looked into it. There isn't. It's not a thing. It's the media narrative like running with it. You could,
well, then if you're speaking about conversations, I would encourage you to find somebody who disagrees with you and is also very educated like you, and, you know, somebody who can represent the queer community and talk with you about that and, you know, shed some light on things that you either haven't read or haven't been exposed to. Because just because you haven't read it doesn't mean it's not real and doesn't mean it's not out there.
Right. But that also doesn't mean that, like, well, it must be true because, you know, it had like.
Well, let me say this about what's true. Everybody's experience is true to them. So then you're just arguing, like, you want to talk about getting in the weeds, then let's talk about my reality versus yours versus, you know, a queer Black person or, you know, so I'm just saying that it's like going there of saying what's true. Somebody's truth is their own. So you can't
So
argue.
you're just saying if someone feels like Trump getting reelected is an attack on them, it must be true.
No, I think there is a level of delusion. I think I'm a good read of if somebody is being dramatic or, you know, gaslighting for attention.
Right.
But I'm saying good salt of the earth people on both sides. I mean, again, there's plenty of people in my family that I don't agree with. I, you know, vehemently don't agree with.
Yeah.
But would I call them hateful? Not at all. I think that their exposure is different. I think their life experience is different. I hope to share more of my life experience in order to show them that, like, you know, being in a gay relationship isn't like all sin and people just blowing each other.
Of
like,
course.
you know, they also like work jobs and, you know,
But- and
have
also-
stressors. Let me finish that. I'm simply saying, you know, I think exposure in all of those ways are important. And so I'm simply saying that salt of the earth people expressing their truth, that is true to them. And that's an important part of the conversation, just because it doesn't hit, you know, something in the news. But I also am acknowledging what you're saying, which is if there is no direct attack on, you know, the queer community, and I'm putting I know it's a very large community, but
yeah.
for purposes of this conversation, putting that in one lump sum, right? Maybe that isn't that direct, but there's clearly repercussions of having a president who has had the presidency that he's had, which has been based on gaslighting,
Sure.
igniting, and all of those things are also, to your point, which has made him a leader for a lot of people who feel lost.
Right. But what I'm saying, we could blame Trump all we want, and he deserves a lot of blame. I'm not excusing him being a terrible leader. He's not a uniter. He's not articulate. He doesn't do anything to bring the country together and heal it. So that I fully acknowledge, and he should be ashamed of himself for that. But he is a symptom of a deeper disease that is going on in our culture. And until we fix that, which is my point before about we have to win, whoever wins has to do it classy, because that illness that is happening right now, and I'll just speak for the United States, I don't know about other countries, it's going to get worse and worse if we don't address that head on. So we might get Trump out of there, but until we actually figure out how to treat each other as Americans and look at people as humans and not our quote unquote enemies because they wear a different hat than I do, this is just it's gonna get so much worse.
Well, I don't agree. I don't think it'll get much worse.
You think when Trump's out, it'll fix itself?
No. I actually don't believe that Trump won't be president.
You think he'll win again?
I think he'll win again.
He might.
And so
It's hard to know.
I
don't think the COVID thing helps him. I think it makes him look weak, and people are afraid of that.
well, just speaking from what I know in the small amount that I've read, again, I I think one way or the other, this will be a very close race. Or I think it'll be one of two things. It'll either be a blowout towards Biden, or it's going to be an incredibly close call for Biden or for Trump. But I think that I think there's a lot of people who are not rooting in the idea that Trump could very well be our president for another 4 years. I think that is a very real reality. And whether I've come to that conclusion in order to protect myself of like just assume that this is going to be what the world is for another 4 years, and just accepting that. But I don't believe that Biden or Trump, or wait, let me go back to, okay, so what you were saying, which is things are only going to get worse and worse, which I was saying I don't agree, which is simply like the amount of time. I don't think that humans have really changed as far as like tribalism of what they lean towards. I think it's that we have a 24-hour news cycle. We have influencers. We are inundated with media and data all the time, over and over and over again. But I don't think that our division is any greater than it's ever been. People in poor communities have been taken, they have had no resources which is why they're so mad, because this has been continuing to go on. Places with poor education has stayed that way. You know, people with a lot of money have made sure that our public school systems stay as remedial as they do in order to not encourage innovation and drawing outside of the lines. And, you know, these are things that we've created a world that asks people to stay small, because that's how governments work. And I don't think that's a radical thought. It might be radical for somebody to hear that concept for the first time.
Yeah.
But I do believe that. And I also think that that's a lot of what this human experience is, which is like within the confines of this, you know, world that we've set up, how much do you want to choose that you have control over? And how many, you know, do you want to have conversations with other people? Do you want to read an article before you publish it? Do you want to reach out to somebody that you really love that disagrees with you?
But I don't think most people do. I think a lot of people are taking the lazy route, and they tweet a couple things. And they think,
of course,
I'm
people would
fighting
rather eat a Big Mac than learn how to cook. People would rather stay in a shitty marriage than challenge themselves to get out of it. People would rather. I did it for 15 years of my life. I would rather drink for 15 years and convince myself I was having fun and just living my life, rather than going, oh, I think maybe I'm just utilizing this so that I don't have to see outside of myself.
But you know what's funny?
And see myself fully. So I 100% agree with that.
But what's funny to me is that how up in arms everybody is about Trump stuff, which is, I understand the anger, but truly like day to day, in your day to day life for most people, the president does not have that big of an effect on you. What's a way bigger effect is your city council, your state senate, your governor, all the local people in charge affect your daily life way, way more than the president does. And there's like so little motivation. I mean, maybe this year with like in LA with like Jackie Lacey as the DA and stuff and the police things, there's a little bit more uptick in that. But if people really are truly motivated to push these different like agendas they want to push, they should start organizing at like the local level. That's how you do it. You start getting your city council and your state senate flipped in your favor. And then you start thinking about like, you know, instead of just like marching around in paintball gear saying that you're going to end capitalism.
I agree. I think, again, if we're thinking about resources. So right now, if you think about, we talk about all the time in our house how a lot of the reason we're working as hard as we can is so that the remedial tasks we spend time doing, we can hire somebody else to do, right?
Sure.
The amount of time it takes for us to do laundry, by the time you go get gas, get groceries, come home, unload them, clean, re-clean, like there's so much time spent. So for folks that are in areas that have little to no resources and a lot of single parent family households that, you know, are working 2 jobs or whatever, asking those people like, oh, well, if you want better, then just do better. They don't have, I know that's not what you're saying. I'm simply offering, this is not, there's no gotcha game here. I want to be very clear, like very, very clear. We're about to get married in a month. I know this is my life now. This is not a game for me. This is not suddenly I'm going to get you and go, haha, see, I'm right. Now everybody knows it.
I know.
So I'm simply offering that I think what you're saying is very true. And I want folks, that is an offering of empowerment. That's what you're offering people. You're encouraging people to empower themselves. That is incredibly forward thinking. And I think that that's a wonderful thing to offer people.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, hold on, Joey. Let me sit up straight for this photo.
You
Guys,
guys can't
Joey in studio, taking our photo.
There we go. Got to do it for the gram, right?
Here we go. Okay.
Just stunned silence. You don't have to pose for it. Okay.
Oh, no, I do. Okay.
All right, listeners, that was exciting, right?
We won't edit that out because that's real life. No, but let's wrap this. And I knew I said we shouldn't start with Trump because it's going to take the whole time. And you go, no, I got it. And now an hour later, here
I
we
had
are.
a whole thing prepared, and you cut me off in the middle and just jumped in.
No, don't say that. That's not fair. Which is why I said when we talk about these things, it's not me jumping in. If you want to have a conversation, you know how these conversations are going to go.
Right.
I don't.
Well, I was planning to do the angle of like just purely from like a narrative point, how in the hilarity of like the Trump memorial circus that would happen, and I was gonna go into that, but then we got serious per usual. I think for me,
Oh, so it's my fault we had this conversation. I am not taking that.
I
onus.
have the ability to take all this and just laugh at it and make it fun. And being like, think about like all the T-shirts they're gonna sell at like the Florida beach boardwalk of like Trump with like a halo around him.
Oh yeah, and
like
any like cutout where if you hold it one way it's Trump and then the other way it's Trump as an angel.
It's gonna be like our King in heaven. It'll be like Trump and Jesus like back to back with the arms crossed. You know what I mean? Like that shit's coming.
Well, I hope he doesn't die.
I hope no one dies. I'm just saying though that like even if he dies in like 20 years, there's gonna be. I think
maybe
by then his thing will fade, though.
I don't think he'll live another 20 years. He's not in great health. God bless him.
No. But he seemed to bounce back from the COVID stuff. Okay, you want to wrap it up with what we did this weekend?
What I wanted to finish, no, because now we have 10 minutes, and I had a great time, and it deserved a full hour to talk about.
We can go.
But what I want to finish by saying that is I want to say I encourage you to continue to invite people to invest in their communities. I think that that's a wonderful message.
Yeah.
I'm simply offering the message that a lot of the places that need the most infrastructure have the least amount of resources. So it's also incredibly difficult for those people to have any semblance of building.
Sure.
Which is why, unfortunately, the outcome of that is rage, is anger, and sometimes it turns to violence.
Yeah.
Because that's built up over time. So there's no making excuses for any behavior on any side of the fence.
Right.
It's simply remembering that each of us have had a different experience, and those experiences are incredibly complex. And so if we're looking at America, it's like so easy for us to make these blanket statements, even this blanket statement of like civil war's coming. It's like, that is incredibly, I'm not disagreeing with that. I would not be shocked to see that in our lifetime. I think it's more that what I always want to do with my message, I don't give a shit if you agree with me or not. But I know, and you, not even you, Alex, but like you as anybody that's listening in the universal you, which is the one thing that what I'm saying is true across the board is our language is important. And our language enables us to rebuild things just as fast as it allows us to break things down. So not only when we're speaking about ourselves, but when we're speaking about other people, how can we utilize our language in a way that empowers us and says something that's true? And that, it's like, if nothing else, and to your point, people are lazy. Why would they want to do that? But that's just what I want to end on, of offering that as we move through the rest of this year, which is, to your point, if you're speaking about Trump supporters, if you're speaking with somebody who doesn't agree with you, if you're speaking about remember that you still have power in those conversations and that you can have combative conversations and still learn something from the other person.
Yeah. I mean, we could go in circles, so let's just move on from that. But yes, I agree with you. I don't think I didn't say that. I think I highlighted that, and I was just simply encouraging people. What? What's so funny?
I'm just laughing. You're like, yeah, okay. Anyway.
No, I was just saying I'm sure it can feel a little helpless trying to take on getting the presidency to a point where you want it to be. So start smaller, right? Just start smaller and work up from there.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Okay, well, that was an intense episode. We try to keep it fun and light, but it went a different way.
Well, I just encourage you, if now we can do like an off the record, like I just encourage you that sometimes you are so quick to blame me when you get like excited or frustrated about something. And you're like, well, because you, and I'm like, nah, dog. Like, it's not about me. And you do that to me all the time where you're like, well, you started it. I'm like, I didn't know.
But in my head, I thought we were going to like go back and forth. We were going to
So
talk
in your
about
head,
all
you could have shared that with me. You could
But
have
it's
said,
funnier if it's organic. But in my head, it was we were going to talk about all the hilarious music acts
okay,
that
well,
would be at
sex
Trump's
is also
funeral.
great when it like, occurs out of nowhere too. But y'all, put a condom on. So, you know what I mean? It's like sometimes people, you got to have uncomfortable conversations.
Who would be the headliner at the Trump goodbye concert?
3 Doors Down?
No, they already played. I'm trying
That's
to think.
because it's the only one I could think of.
Who else likes Trump? I don't know. There's a few. A lot of UFC fighters like Trump.
They don't, what skills do they have?
They're incredible athletes.
No, I know that, but I'm saying with the showcase, it would just be a WWE situation.
That's different.
I know,
We gotta
I
move on.
know, I know,
All right,
I know.
next segment.
See,
Next.
that's the other problem. No, so you don't want to go back and forth. This is why you're a stand-up. This is why you're probably terrible at improv, because you've already decided what the scene is, and I didn't play the part that you in your head wrote for me, so now I'm an asshole. Don't do that to me. Don't set me up in that way.
I didn't call you an asshole.
I know you didn't. I'm just speaking freely. And I'm saying, if you ever called me an asshole, we wouldn't be getting married in a month. But I'm saying that it's like, I do encourage you. You could have, we do these little, quick chats before we start. You could have said,
You're right.
Here's what I want to do with Trump. Here's the tone I want to do. I didn't know that. I wasn't privy to that.
Well, all that aside, I do think when it's purely organic, it's the best conversations, regardless, even if it gets all serious. Because I did a podcast this morning on stereo, and the woman who was interviewing me, she was like, "Oh my God, your wife, by the way, she's so funny. You guys have the best dynamic." Like,
Oh my God. Thank you, girl.
her name is, I think it's Nabia. She's Indian. I think it's Nabia. But anyway, so thank you for listening. I'm sure you're watching this, and thank you. We appreciate you. But let's wrap it up with our last segment. So we both had an exciting weekend, right?
I mean, what do I have? Like 2 minutes to talk about this? I had the freaking best weekend of my life.
We got a couple minutes. We're not in a rush, right, Joey? No. Okay, we're good. So this weekend we
At our bachelorette parties.
Why do you say it like that?
Well, I got to get amped now. You took the wind out of my sails.
You're not amped from that hour of talking about, changing.
No, dude, that's so exhausting for me. I need like a bath and like 2 episodes of Schitt's Creek now.
Okay. Well, anyway, so we had our bachelor and bachelorette parties, not together. We were across town. I was in Redondo Beach.
Ugh, people who do that, like,
That's weird.
you've trust issues. That's
Yeah.
what that is.
But it was great. I'll just say, so yeah, I went with a bunch of my closest friends and my brother, and we just rented a beach house in Redondo Beach, and it was just 3 nights of just a lot of dudes being dudes, and it was great. It was honestly, it was the best weekend of my life. It was phenomenal.
It was the best weekend of your life?
I think so, yeah.
Oh my God. Well, you got to tell us more than just hung out with a couple dudes. That's a bold statement, Getlin.
I mean, it
The
wasn't.
best weekend of your life? I don't know if I mean, I hope the wedding is going to like,
Live up to it.
I mean, I don't think
But
so.
you know me, I'm a simple man. I don't need a lot, It was just.
I know everybody that I was engaging with during my weekend, and they're like, looks like Alex is having fun. All he's posting is videos of him on bikes. I was like, well,
Yeah, I mean, we got a beach house.
the best weekend of your life.
Okay, well, let me preface by saying I don't have any other weekends that are like monumentous in my life either. Like,
Okay.
I've had like nice weekends, but I don't have a lot of milestones that I was like, that was incredible. I've had like
Interesting.
like my life's been like a lot of nice, like a few bummer moments, but mostly like that was pretty good or just boring. I don't have any. I haven't had any like huge accomplishments that like I like where my career's at. Like I'm doing well in comedy and I've got other stuff in the works and it's cool, but there hasn't been like a huge home run for me yet where I'm like, that was finally, we got it. Like it's still like the upward climb, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was just my brother and then 8 of my other closest friends. And it was great. We just hung out and everybody like had a great time together. And 5 of the guys there were my closest buddies in comedy. And we were just the whole weekend just like making fun of each other.
Oh my
and
God, I can only
laughing.
imagine that it was like bit central.
Yeah. So
How did everybody do that wasn't a comic?
So Guido, who Free the Dust, we had him on a previous episode. He was there, and he was just like taking it in. He's like, dude, I've never been around this much hilarious. Like, he's like, your friends are so funny. He's like, I'm just laughing nonstop. I've never like hung out with comedians in a group,
Yeah.
and we're all super close, so the dynamic is great.
Yeah.
And we're all so different. Like, you've met Luke, and you've met Artie,
Right.
and you've met Tim,
Yeah, very different personalities.
and you've met Dylan over Zoom. So
Yeah.
like, you see they're so different. Like so it really.
Well, so fun fact. So Dylan is at the law firm that is representing
Con
us.
Media. Yeah, he's our lawyer.
Yeah, so check out Con Media. So like I fell in love with Dylan, and I knew that he was friends of yours.
Yeah.
But I had just like fallen. He's just got this like great voice, like awesome presence, and obviously like they're doing great things for us and gonna kind of help us continue to build his career.
Yeah.
So I was already felt bonded to them. But then and like you kept saying like Dylan's coming, but I hadn't associated that it was like
Yeah.
our lawyer Dylan. So that was like when I saw the photos and I'm like, wait a minute, that's Dylan? And you're like, yeah. I'm like, didn't even know.
But it was, yeah, I mean, to me, it just reminded me, I don't need a lot. You know, I was with my buddies. We had a ton of booze. We had bikes. We were on bike rides. We just hung out at the beach all day, watched the sunset. And it was just, it was a really nice house, the fire pit and everything. But like, you know, we went to a bar the first night just because we were like there. We're like, let's just go to a bar. And it was lame. It was fine. But the other 2 nights were like, let's just hang out at the house. Like us being together. Just that was all and it just reminded me like that's really what life's about. Like those like really and that crew of guys especially. Like we really
But was that the first time you guys have all been together too?
since I left Boston, yes.
Yeah.
It was the first time collectively we all or if I had run into them, it was like we were at a show and there was so much else going on. That was the first time and they actually had they'd done a couple like weekend trips together because they're all in Boston and New York. And that's the first time I had been with everybody again. And it was great. It really, yeah, it was just, and I said that when we were doing, I was like, honestly, guys, best weekend of my life. And it was like, oh, and we did a
Oh my God,
toast.
you're so cute.
But it just reminds me, like, I don't need a lot. That's why I'm going to crush as a dad. Just us hanging out with our kids, doing anything is going to be awesome. I can tell.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're so cute.
But a very different weekend from you.
Very different weekend from me. Thank you so much for asking. So my journey of this bachelorette, which of course, you know, I'm Rachel LaVorse, so it was like, let's like overthink this whole thing, you know, and like mull over it and talk about it and then write about it and then put it on Instagram. So that's what I did. And no, but it was, in all seriousness, was like kind of scary for me because so many of my very close friendships have changed over the last couple of years.
Sure.
Which has been like incredibly moving for me and a lot of grief and a lot of sadness, but also a lot of release. Like a lot of those relationships needed to leave
Yeah.
and needed to be let go of. And so when, you know, my trusty maid of honor, writing partner, soon to be neighbor, Casey Navarro was like, what do you want to do? And then, you know, I was already like, I don't know. Cause now I have like, you know, I have like my group of girlfriends from high school that I'm still incredibly close with, but they're all in Atlanta. It's
Yeah.
COVID. They've got kids. Kids are in
Right.
school. Kids are not in school. And I'm like, it just didn't. I'm sure I could have messaged them and been like, hey, it's really important for you to be at this thing. Like, can you come?
Sure.
But I was also like, is the effort of what they would have to do worth it rather
Right.
than me just like knowing I'll see them again in January and like maybe we can do like a dinner then instead? Like, I don't know. I was very sad that some of them weren't there. I think it was something I always thought I would experience with them, but I also decided that I was like, so much of my personal work over the last few years has been like making space for new friendships, like specifically female friendships. Cause like dudes love me. I have so many like amazing men in my life. Like when
Yeah.
people are like dog shitty men, and they're certainly out there. Trust me, I've dated a few of them, but I feel like so lucky to be surrounded by like such diverse, like dynamic, amazing, strong men
Yeah.
that I was like, and I'm already such a masculine energy, which is probably like why I have so many dudes in my life, that I was like, I really want to exercise having more, you're my number one, but having so many more like females in my life. Right.
Yeah.
And so, I also wanted to utilize this weekend as a way to like celebrate that
Yeah.
and like celebrate, like, no, this is the fruits of your labor. Like allow these women that you in some ways, this is so lame, but bear with me. It's me, so you get it. It's too on brand. But like in a way, I've like prayed for these women. I've like spent time actively being like, I want to be surrounded by bold, badass, strong, independent, and like different energies, you know, and like people that are on my level or at my level.
Right.
And so I was so grateful that all of them were able to be there. And obviously we combated a lot, and there was a lot of folks and women that I love very much and I know support me that, you know, either didn't feel comfortable coming out to different events or about to go on something else where they're like, we're all getting COVID tested, I can't like risk it or whatever. And so that was the thing where it was like, okay, we're combating COVID, what can we do? And so we planned it, but all the credit goes to Casey, and we just kind of did like a wellness weekend. So we picked all my favorite things. So on Friday, Stacia Patwell, who I cannot recommend enough, is a hilarious comic, an amazing friend, and super hot, and this incredible personal trainer. And so she leads classes Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so she did like a class special for like my bachelorette. So we did that. And then I had a surprise, and I had like an in-home massage. Shout out to Leaf Massage and Jason Allen. Look him up on Instagram. He's phenomenal. And that was like so nice. So I had this like kind of way to ease in. And we had like a few girlfriends over Friday night and kind of did like some charcuterie and like hung out and just laughed.
Yeah.
Like, speaking of that, like I haven't laughed like that in so long.
It's the best, right?
I mean, it was so nice of just like, holy shit, this is what like welcoming new experiences feels like. This is what a new start feels like. And it was just so relaxed and fun. And then Saturday we went to Zoe's Vintique, which is like my favorite. Zoe is amazing, and she's owned the shop for like 10 years in Mid-City. And like opened up the shop just for us. We had like snacks, and it was literally, I didn't realize because I was like, oh, we're vintage shopping. And then one of my girlfriends was like, oh, this just feels like playing dress up with your friends. And I was like, oh my gosh, I totally just planned for a bunch of adult women to play dress up in this like adorable shop. So we did that. And then, and there was still only about 6 people. So we were kind of all coming and going. So like smaller groups. And then we went to dinner at Shutters in Santa Monica. And it was kind of a bummer because I was hoping it was going to be like, you know, these beautiful, you know, portraits of us on the beach, and then it was like super misty.
Yeah.
Like it looked like the beginning of
Saturday,
like,
right?
Yeah, it looked like the beginning of like a noir movie. Yeah, it was so bizarre, but it was also like whatever, man. You know,
it's just so funny the juxtaposition. Like your girlfriends, and you're like, like dress up in a vintage store, and like, you know.
Oh, I haven't even told you about yesterday yet.
Oh, right.
That was still Saturday. So we did dinner. So I was saying I could have done a full hour on this. And we did dinner, and dinner was phenomenal. Shout out to Eddie at Shutters. He took such great care of us. And yeah, it was just great. And, you know, because of COVID, we couldn't do everybody at one table.
Right.
And you can only do 5 at a table. So it was so nice of like the women I'd already spent time with over the weekend. They had sat at a different table, and the women who were just joining us for dinner, they got to sit with me. So like my social anxiety wasn't out of the roof. Like I didn't feel like I had to entertain everybody, because as an entertainer and, you know, a retired people pleaser, you know, I would want to be like, are you okay? Is everything okay? You know what? No, it's fine. I'll leave. You just stay. Like,
right.
So that was really nice. And then I had, you know, the house to myself Saturday night, because Casey stayed with me on Friday night, but I had the house to myself, and I couldn't sleep. I think I was like so wired. I like was so present.
You just take on all energy all the time. Right?
Yes.
So there's this, But
well, the real reality, which I learned, which was because the whole time I was like, gosh, I have such discomfort. I feel so uncomfortable, and I couldn't figure out why. And I kept framing it. I was like, oh, I think just like personally, like I don't like attention. I can handle it on my career, but like I don't want it. And then I realized, like, if you're ready for a real vulnerable Rachel LaForce comment, which I was like, oh, I'm not comfortable like receiving. Like somewhere along the way, it was like, oh, that's a thing for other people. And I had somebody in my life for a very long time that was like very much driven on like everybody paying attention to her.
Right.
And so I think I associated receiving with that energy.
Yeah.
Which that's not receiving. To a certain extent it is, but like
I get it.
It's not true. Receiving is the opposite of giving. And I am such a giver, and I am, and not in a way that's like self-sacrificing, but in a way that's like is abundant. And so it's only natural that I should be okay with receiving and be okay with like, so it was just a very, very overwhelming like weekend for me in the best way of like, you know.
It's just so funny. Yeah, great. You had a great time. I mean, I could see it. What?
Even Joey's laughing. I'm listening.
I'm just saying, just to me, the humor is just the juxtaposition.
Oh, it's
of-
hilarious.
Because like yours is just like,
I still didn't even tell you about Sunday. Very quick. We did a wellness day in the park.
right.
And so we had all these different, and this was kind of the culmination where all of the women could come because we were outdoors. So we were masked up, everybody was outdoors, and we sat in, a circle of picnic, and everybody was 6 feet apart. And we had a floral crown section, and people made floral crowns. Casey's beautiful boyfriend, Peter, who's this, I think it's Run the Gun Tarot. Or Gun for Tarot. We'll find it. I'll post it. But he's this phenomenal tarot reader. So he offered that. Angelo, what's Angelo's last name? He's a comic. You've probably seen him at shows, but he sketches comics when they're on stage. He's like a very outward, always kind of
Sure.
wearing silly hats and different things. And he's a very interesting soul. But he came and did sketches of everybody. And we had like the gift table, and we had all sorts of charcuterie. And my friend Julian, who's like a healer and astrologist, she came.
And you had a surprise performance from?
A mariachi band.
Yeah. Right. So that's just so funny to me. You're like, yeah, it's like a day in the park with your girlfriends, and there's wellness, and there's flowers, and there's artwork, and and then mine is like just dudes grilling steaks, smoking cigars, drinking some really great whiskey, and just being dudes. It's like,
But that's also.
and it was amazing.
But that's the thing. It's like, I think it's like, yeah, but also like, would we have been shocked if we would have had the same experience? Like, no, you and I are clearly cosmically designed as vastly different
Yeah.
people. And that's why we'll do great things because our offerings to the world are very different.
How boring would this podcast be if it was just us agreeing with each other the whole time?
Exactly. Boring. And also, like, if you're dating somebody right now and all they do is agree with you, like, have a thought about that too. Like,
Yeah.
unless you're looking for a yes man, then, whatever. Teach their own.
Well,
But,
on that note, I think we got to wrap it up.
okay, fine.
I know there's someone else who has to come in the studio, and Joey's got things to do.
All right.
But well, you look so bummed out. I think that was.
Well, because I wanted to be able to fully share, but it's fine. I'll do it on my own podcast. That's why I wanted to have a cap on the Trump stuff. But that's why I also am going to trust my gut. And now next time I'm going to override and I'm going to say, no, I'm going to make an executive decision.
It's funny
and I'm
because-
going to put Bachelorette and Bachelor stuff first so we can express that and talk about that. And then we can talk about politics.
It's so funny because to me, it was almost like the opposite, because my Bachelor weekend was amazing, but I was like, yeah, but that was for like me and my friends. I'll share it a bit, but ultimately, like, they weren't there, so who cares? Whereas like the wacky Trump stuff, it's like, that'll be great fodder for the conversation, and you're so like, this is a beautiful moment, I want to share it with the world.
Because what I experienced, I feel like, is something that is worth sharing and sharing
Sure.
my experience and how, all of the offerings
You're
that
just so much more to feelings than I am.
Well, I mean, sure, I think that's valid, but it's also like, it's just a different way we share information. You
Sure.
just feel that politics is something worth sharing, and I feel like my personal experience is something worth sharing.
Fair enough.
All right.
What? You don't. I'll give you the last word.
Joey, did we cover it? Did we cover everything we needed to today, do you feel? Do you give us the thumbs up? We can wrap it?
We got a thumbs up.
Okay,
from
all right.
Joey.
Joey said it feels good, so we're going to end there. You guys, as always, we are House Rules. We are conversational podcasts by two very passionate conversationalists. We've got our hot rebrand that'll be coming at you here in the next couple of months or in 2021. So many fun things. As always, if you like this podcast, if you enjoy this podcast, first of all, DM us. Let us know. We would love to hear that. I think a lot of people think we're like inundated with DMs. Spoiler, we're not. So reach out. Let me know. And yeah, share it with a friend. Commenting, giving us 5 stars, subscribing, all that stuff. It's such a simple thing for you. We've got a wedding coming up. As Alex said, that can be our wedding gift from you to us. We would appreciate it. We are here every Monday, 5:30 Pacific. 8:30 Eastern,
Well,
unless like
most
today when we're
Mondays.
not, but most of you weren't watching live today anyway, so don't you even worry about it. We love you so much. Please, like Alex said, look into your community, see how you can invest, reach out to people. If you're in a community through your church or through your kid's school, that's a great place to start, is just within your own community, of building the community that you want. I also offer you the offering of like paying attention to your language this week as you move through the week. What about it is supportive? What about it is negative? These are our offerings for you this week. We love you so much.
That's it.